Very good afternoon. We will start this parallel technical session 32 Hall D. Today, to conduct this session, we have been requested the Professor Premalata K of Anna University, Chennai to chair the session. And for co-chairing this session, we have requested Dr. Manas Kumar Bhoy, PDU Gandhinagar. So then we have three lectures lined up. One is SOAP lecture, state-of-the-art special lecture by Professor Murali Krishna. And then followed by a special lecture by Professor Abhishek Kumar of IIT Guwahati. And one more special lecture by Professor Rangaswamy of NIT Calicut. Let me have the pleasure of introducing the chair and co-chair to the delegates. Professor Premalata is working as professor in the Division of Soil Mechanics and Foundation Engineering, Department of Civil Engineering, College of Engineering, Gindi, Anna University, and very old college, Chennai. She has 34 years of experience in teaching, and she was awarded the Achievement Award for Research in 2002 at Anna University. She was the head of the Division of Soil Mechanics and Foundation Engineering from 2013 to 2018. She has published over 100 papers in international journals and conferences. She was the president of the Society of Civil Engineers 2014 to 15, CEG. She is the executive committee member, IGS, and building committee member, Alumni Association of CEG. On behalf of the organizing committee, I extend a hearty welcome to you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
And let me introduce the co-chair, Dr. Manas Kumar Bhoy. He is working as assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering, Pandit Deen Dayal Energy Institute, Gandhinagar. Previously, this was called PDPU. And he works in the area of ground improvement. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I extend a hearty welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request the chair and co-chair to take over the session and conduct further proceedings. Over to you, madam, and Manas, sir.
Let us go for second lecture. Because the question box, there is no questions. Anyhow, the question will come now only. So we'll have the questions at the end.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Now we'll go for the second lecture, which is by Abhishek Kumar, IIT Guwahati. The title is Importance of Site-Specific Observations at Various Stages of Seismic Microzonation Practices. Dr. Abhishek Kumar is an associate professor at Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. His research areas include seismic source characterization, forward and inverse ground response analysis, seismic hazard assessment, and development of regional ground motion prediction equation. He has published more than 30 journal papers, 26 conference papers, and has guided several PhD students at MTech and BTech levels. Dr. Kumar is working with agencies like DST, Minister of Earth Science and Nuclear Power Corporation of India, and a recipient of Inspire Fellowship from DST, Young Engineer Award 2015 from Indian National Academy of Engineering and Institute of Engineers, India, which is one of the prestigious award. I welcome Dr. Abhishek to present his lecture.
So, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks to the organizer for giving me this opportunity. I also thank the chair and the co-chair of the session for the introduction and coordinating for the session. So I will be talking about different observations which we have come across, like myself and students, which can actually alter our understanding and which can give maybe more accurate site-specific findings whenever we are trying to develop hazard maps or microzonation maps for different parts of, particularly for Indian subcontinent. What are the works we have done? We'll try to look into that part. And what are the different observations? So when we talk about earthquakes, generally we talk in terms of damages which have been witnessed by the people living in the area or reported in the newspaper, mostly in forms of damages. But we all know that it's basically the shaking which is happening because of the transfer of waves between the source and the site, and how the system responds, whether it can be a soil, it can be a building, it can be other utilities, how it's going to respond because of the vibration. It may undergo partial damage, it may undergo no damage, or it may undergo complete collapse. Same way, if you look into some of the damages which have been witnessed by different earthquakes in and around of Indian peninsula, subcontinent, you can see about 1897, 1905, 1934 Gaya Nepal earthquake, 2005 Kashmir earthquake. This is just to give you an understanding what kind of damages which have been witnessed in the past, and considering the population density, particularly in majority of locations along the Himalayan belt, and of course many of the important locations in northeastern part, we can witness if this kind of earthquake is going to get repeated in the future, what will be the level of damages one can expect. So that also gives a hint. We have to go for site-specific, more detailed investigations in comparison to the one which have been done in the past. List of significant earthquakes. We know about 1897, 1950 earthquake, but if you explore the history, we can get actually significant damages because of earthquake to as early as maybe 1100, particularly if you are talking about Himalayan belt. So starting from 1255 Kathmandu earthquake, and then you can have detail about how many fatalities were there. And then recently in the year 2015, we had this Pokhara earthquake, which was west of Kathmandu, which caused almost 10,000, as per official record, 10,000 fatalities, many more damages. And very recently in Assam, on 28th of April, we had another event in Dekiajuli, which caused widespread liquefaction in different parts of Assam. So it's like we are hearing something from the history based on exploring the literature available. At the same time, we are also seeing, even from major to moderate earthquakes, what kind of damages we are experiencing now. And keeping in mind, then we are having different seismic gaps in Himalayas, even Assam also. So what is the seismic scenario for which we have to be prepared for whenever we are going for a design of important infrastructure, whenever we are going for design of bridges, tunnels, because in northeast and in different parts of country, because of strategic point of view, a lot of infrastructure development is under process. So when we talk about earthquakes, is basically the release of built up energy at the source, that is focus, and then it is travel at different distances across, around the epicenter, depending upon what is the medium characteristics through which it is propagating. Sometimes there will be heterogeneity, sometimes there will be scattering, intrinsic attenuation, as a result of which, even at same distance around the epicenter, the ground motion characteristics, which one is going to see based on the ground motion records, it will be different. So in a wider sense, you can see there is a source and there is a site. Under the site, you are having local soil, which we generally understand based on local site effect, as discussed by Professor Murali Krishna also. And then beneath the local soil, we are having bedrock, having shear velocity 1500 meter per second or above that. So generally, from the source to the site, waves will be passing through the bedrock or crystal medium, and then these will be subsequently altered or amplified because of the presence of local soil before reaching the foundation of the building. Overall, you can see the entire process can be divided into source, propagation path, and site characteristics. These are some pictorial views where you can see how the situation was there before and what happened after the earthquake. Particularly for 2015 Nepal earthquake, 2011 Christchurch earthquake, New Zealand, and 2011 Japan earthquake. So these are the different damages which we generally see. But in the background, when we try to understand or forecast the level of ground shaking for the future, these are the primary three objectives one has to deal with. So primarily you can go with ground motion generated at the source, how these are getting attenuated, de-amplified or amplified. Collectively, it can be understood based on seismic hazard analysis, which also requires ground motion prediction equation, and then local side effect. So one can go for geotechnical, geophysical testing, indirect measurements also, and then quantification of induced effects like liquefaction. Now, when we go for microzonation practices, we try to understand what are the, depending upon the terrain type, depending upon the seismic activity of the region, we try to understand what is bedrock level seismic hazard analysis, what is surface level seismic hazard analysis, plus in addition to that, if it is hilly terrain, what are the chances of landslide occurrence, if it is plain terrain with subsequent overburden, what is the local side effect dominating in the region, and so on and so forth. If the terrain is changing very widely, we take also that into account. And then collectively giving different weights to different thematic layers, which are contributing to the overall hazard or hazard index, we can club all those thematic layers and come up with the microzonation maps. So there are different kinds of inputs which are required at different stages, and different outcomes are there, which will be after the processing. For like seismic hazard analysis, you will be getting rock level or surface level, depending upon the inputs considered, how much is the PG value expected at the site. Whether it is based on deterministic one, you will get the worst scenario. If you are interested to find out what is the most probable ground motion at the site, you can go with probabilistic one, which will give you what is the probability of accidents or the confidence at which you can propose the level of ground shaking. Now, what are the observations which I'm going to discuss here is identification of seismic sources or some information which can help you in understanding more accurately the seismic activity which the region is witnessing from time to time, and which may or may not be the part of known earthquake catalog. Second one is seismic classification of earthquake recording station, because whatever data we are using for study, these have been recorded on different stations. So the important information about seismic site class of those recording stations is equally important. That enhances our confidence in using those data. Third one is path attenuation characteristics. As I mentioned, between the source and the site, a lot of parameters will be there which is controlling the ground motion characteristics. So how that can be addressed. Then development and selection of ground motion prediction equations and their assigned weights. We have some observations. I'm going to share those. Source characterization, and then local side effects, and then I'll go to the conclusion part. So first, the source identification of the sources. Now, our earthquake catalog mainly composed of past earthquake data as well as the data which is since the earthquake recording had started, primarily after 1980. So 1986 Dharamshala earthquake we consider as the first earthquake which was used, for which the ground motion records are available. But if you explore, different literatures have used different duration of earthquake catalog whenever they are going for the determination of seismic activity, completeness analysis, and even for declustering work. What actually happens, you can see over here, different earthquake catalog, and more information we have for the catalog, more confidence it will, it will build while we are determining whether the seismic activity parameter or seismic hazard values. But most of the things, when we start hazard analysis, we take into account the information which is known to us at the present. But at the same time, we are having different signatures from time to time, particularly from historic earthquakes like 1897 or 1255 or so many earthquakes, which have triggered liquefaction or indirect evidences, which can be called as seismites also, which gives an indication like it's not only the duration in which we have earthquake records, the region was seismically active, but in the past also. So you have to take those considerations also into account. That will give you what are the possible sources available in the region, which one has to understand based on detailed site investigation, or we can go with literature before planning for any site-specific investigation. One is this one, where you can see in the history there was some earthquake which induced liquefaction. You can see when liquefaction occurs, there will be generation of pore water pressure. When it dissipates, it creates some kind of sand flows at the surface. But if this has happened maybe 200-300 years before the present time, these might be stored, these characteristics might be stored in somewhere in the stratification. So one can go for detailed investigation at the site. This is going to tell you what was, if you go in further detail, that can also give you an idea about what was the source or magnitude of the earthquake which triggered it, and you can club those earthquake magnitude also in your earthquake catalog. Same way, you can also explore with respect to remote sensing and existing literature, where are fault scarps, sand dikes, fissures, all those that will give you more enhanced information about the sources available in your study area, rather than maybe depending on one or two sources. Because these kind of studies are continuous process. So after every 5 to 6 years, you can get maybe some more earthquake information or source information available to you. You can refer to that. Site classification, recording had started in different parts. So, but if you see, one is inconsistency because the distribution of those recording station is not uniform. So whenever there is a source, you might be seeing in one particular orientation you are having record, and in other orientation you don't have any earthquake record. Same way, if you see, the classification of earthquake recording station site was given based on geology. So there was no in situ investigation done, primarily for PESMO's website. So we started doing for those recording stations, particularly in the Western Himalayas, based on horizontal to vertical spectral ratio, where you can find out, you'll get to know what is the natural frequency of the particular recording station, and corresponding to natural frequency, what is the amplification or horizontal to vertical spectral ratio at the site. So based on natural frequency, you can correlate with respect to site classification values, and then you can classify a particular site. Subsequently, you can also determine VS30 values. And so that's how we determine for close to 90 recording stations. This is a published one. Then path attenuation, as I mentioned, between the source and the site, there will be different process of scattering, intrinsic attenuation, which will change the ground motion characteristics between the source and the site before the local soil effect comes into picture. So these are some recording stations, again from Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Delhi, which we had taken into consideration to understand. This is basic information where you can understand the amplification spectra at the recording station, which can be correlated with respect to the source characteristics as well as propagation path characteristics, considering all recordings are done for similar kind of site condition. So we can solve this equation considering a reference station where we can consider the propagation characteristics will not change significantly. You can solve this equation for determining the propagation path or change in amplification as a function of distance for different frequency of waves. And that's how you can get to know what is the average attenuation characteristics. You can also compare, this is going to give you different frequency of waves, which are going to, with respect to the distance, how these are getting attenuated or change in the amplification function. This is a comparison because these are local characteristics. So we cannot consider one region path characteristics to be applicable to a broader area or larger research area or study area. So you have to go for site-specific path attenuation characteristics. Then GMP we had used because recording station is a major issue. We have recordings, but site class of recording station, then propagation path, source characteristics of the recording station, that is a major issue. So we had considered some database. You can see here, this for different site classes. Of course, site A and B are relatively stiffer in comparison to site class E. So we had to classify the recording based on the recording station on which these records were done before using the same for recording stations. We also determined source characteristics, propagation path, as I mentioned in the previous slides. So using those source propagation path characteristics as well as amplification spectra, which we develop for each kind of site class, we try to generate synthetic motion using XSIM program, which was given by Motazedian and Atkinson in 2005. These are the different fault mechanism solutions, stress, strike, dip, and other characteristics, which are relative to the magnitude taken from different sources. So it's like for each of these site classes, we try to generate all these recordings synthetically. Once synthetically generated and actually recorded were validated, you can see these are the validations done. Once these are validated, we generated additional ground motions for apparent stations. So this AS indicates apparent stations. You can consider for each recording station, we generated close to 35 recordings. And at the end, we generated close to 2,000 ground motion simulations were done. out of which 500 were taken randomly based on latent hypercube sampling, which takes care of all possible variation in different model parameters. After that, we have done regression analysis and tried to develop the ground motion prediction equation for North India for different site classes. So far, this is the only equation which is available for North India, which can be applied depending upon the site class of the recording station. You can select the coefficient and use this equation. Next part is source characterization, because whenever we go for seismic hazard analysis, we consider past earthquake data as well as fault, but we have to also take into consideration, like this is for northeastern part of the India. We have Eastern Himalayas, we have Indo-Burmese basin, then Bengal basin, then the northeastern part, which is undergoing some kind of rotation. So in such a case, we cannot consider the seismic activity to be uniform throughout the study area. We have to understand what are the possible variation in the seismic activity. And then, so we have considered particularly for Shillong Plateau. You can consider Shillong Plateau more or less, I mean, you can superimpose, it will be like the Meghalaya region. You can see the first one is past earthquake data. Second one is sources which are available in the region. But the third one, if you see the rate of movement in the eastern part, in the central part, and in the northern part are completely different. That means the entire 500 kilometer radial distance is not going to behave same whenever contributing to the seismic activities in the near future, and has not responded also in the same way in the past also. Same way, if you see in terms of rupture characteristics, Bengal Basin, Indo-Burmese Range, Shillong Plateau, Assam Valley region, and Eastern Himalayas, you can see the rupture characteristic itself is same. So that means one part is not correlating exactly the same way in which the other part of the Shillong Plateau is considering. So if I want to attempt seismic hazard of the Shillong Plateau, I have to consider how different parts of this seismotectonic province are going to respond while adding or contributing to the seismic hazard analysis. So that's how, based on this analysis, we consider this entire 500 kilometer radial distance is not going to remain same, but it is going to behave in 4 parts. You can see Eastern Himalayas, Bengal Basin, Indo-Burmese Range, and Shillong Plateau, Assam Valley region. Another observation which we understood here, whenever we go for any study area like Shillong or Tura here, we consider the source characterization definition which we have used in the previous slide. But if you see the Shillong Plateau, the Shillong city, the range of epicentral distance of this city with respect to each of those source zones will be different. As a result, whenever we are trying to understand the weights or ranks of different GMPs, it is going to change. You can see over here for Shillong, you can see some GMPs are there. You can see NDMA was found 0.59 as the weight, but at the same time, if you move your study area from Shillong to Tura, your weights have significantly narrowed down to Anbolgan et al. 2013. Same way for other parts also you can understand. So it means depending upon the size of your study area and depending upon the position of your site, your weights of the GMPs are not going to remain same because of relative position of your study area and your site within the study area. So this is one important observation one has to see, rather than taking same weights of each of these GMP throughout the study area. That means if you are going for a very large study area, you cannot use same weights. You have to actually divide the study area into different parts and then go for determination of weights and ranks of the GMPs. Now, uncertainty with respect to earthquake occurrence, I'll directly go to the site. Now, this is observation. First slide, you can see this is based on deterministic seismic hazard analysis. You can see, as per this analysis, the northern part is corresponding to very high seismic hazard.
Abhishek, we don't have time, 3-5.
Yeah, maybe another 2 minutes maximum.
Thank you.
So this one is, okay, I'll go to quickly. So this one is basically going to tell you, because 1897 earthquake was the worst scenario earthquake, but if you take probabilistic hazard, the chance of that kind of earthquake to get repeated in the future will be less, which can be evidenced in the probabilistic seismic hazard value. So seismic contour has completely reversed when we go for probabilistic seismic hazard. Okay, local side effect. I'll just go to the observation here. Yeah, so go to the same site. If you apply different ground motion, your amplification is going to change. So that's why whenever you are going for ground response analysis, you have to go for more number of ground motions to get a complete picture of boreholes, local site effect. I'll just show you here. Yeah. So here you can see, depending upon the input motion characteristics, your same soil is going to show amplification as high as 0.5, 5.5 to as low as 1.0. So this is called as dynamic soil response curve. The same thing was observed for Nepal also. Yeah, this one. So based on this, one can determine spectral acceleration coefficients also. Okay, I'll stop here. I'll just go to the observations. These were, yeah. So whenever you are going for hazard analysis, you have to update your seismic sources. Same way, extreme events are there, but the probability of the extreme events also have to be considered into account. Input motion alters local site effects significantly, so that has to be understood. Last point is important. Generally, when we go for microzonation practice, we assign high weights to higher amplification as well as higher PHA value. But both of them cannot happen simultaneously, so one has to take those into account. Thank you so much. So any question is there, I would like to answer to that. Thank you.
There is no question in the question box. We will have the questions at the end. Since because of time, the time is already 7. We have to invite the third speaker, and we will have the questions at the end of the session.
We'll take all the questions at the end.
Okay. Now, thank you, Abhishek, for your nice presentation. This is a very exhaustive study which you have done for this microzonation process. One has to do like this only for exact microzonation. It's not taking some kind of earthquake like deterministic, etc., etc. So now it has gone, the microzonation has gone for a very high resolution, if I see my experience of the past 25 years. Thank you very much. We'll come to you later.